George is just a little pig who likes to have fun and seems to love his family. But what if we told you that in reality, no character in Peppa Pig actually likes George?
Dinosaur.
Crybaby. The truth is that there are a few reasons that lead us to believe George is disliked, and one of them is the fact that he is a complete crybaby. Yes, we're talking about a very young child, and it's normal for someone that age to cry a lot, but the truth is that George always cries over nothing. George has cried because he got muddy, because he couldn't reach a ball, because he got scared, because he ate vegetables. In short, this little guy exaggerates all the time and always panics when things aren't going the way he wants, as if the world were obligated to please him at all times. Because of this, some fans don't like George. If there are people who don't like him just by watching him on TV, imagine those who actually have to live with George. Peppa hates loud noise, and Evie must also be bothered by it since she's very young. As for his parents, well, no mom or dad likes listening to non-stop crying. If you think we're just exaggerating, know that by the end of this video, we'll convince you that nobody likes George Pig. Are you ready? Because another amazing Cinewave is starting now. Dinosaurs. The most famous trait of Peppa's younger brother is that he is completely obsessed with dinosaurs. Besides carrying around a toy called Mr. Dinosaur all the time, he often responds to things by just saying dinosaur, even when that answer makes absolutely no sense in certain situations. The little pig is starting to speak better and better, but his obsession with these prehistoric animals remains exactly the same. And we're sure this annoys the people around him. Peppa has shown more than once that she doesn't like this dinosaur obsession. On George's birthday, she gets disappointed when she finds out the party will be held in the museum's dinosaur room, even though George absolutely loved the surprise. Peppa may be the only one who doesn't hide her dislike for these animals, but that's only because she always says what she thinks. Many others probably hate dinosaurs too, but don't say anything to avoid making George start crying, like he always does when he's confronted. Hated by Peppa. If there's someone who hates George in the series, that person is Peppa. After all, there are several episodes where she shows hatred toward him or even treats him badly for no real reason, like in the episode where she decides to kick him out of the treehouse Grandpa Pig built for the two of them. In this episode, Peppa was playing in the treehouse with her friends. George and Richard were also in the house, well-behaved and quiet. Even so, Peppa thought it was necessary to kick out her younger brother and his best friend. That's something only someone who truly hates their own brother would dare to do. And the worst part? None of the other girls Peppa was playing with care about the unfair eviction of the two, which means they don't like George either. Do the girls talk badly about him behind his back? Spoiled. It's easy to believe that Peppa doesn't like George very much, but everyone thinks that at least Mommy Pig and Daddy Pig adore him, especially since many people see the little pig as someone who is spoiled by his parents. He always gets the best presents. On top of that, his birthday at the museum, which even included a robot dinosaur, was way better than Peppa's birthday, which only had a magic show performed by Daddy Pig himself. What few people realize is that George being so spoiled doesn't mean his parents love him. It actually means they don't. It's very common for parents to give their child lots of cool toys to make up for not being able to show real affection, and that may be the case with Peppa's little brother. Abandoned. The worst part about George being so disliked is that, little by little, he's losing one of the few advantages he had, being the center of attention in the family. Before, his parents at least tried to please him with toys, but now that his little sister Evie has been born, things have changed. George is no longer the youngest child, and therefore no longer needs to be spoiled to make up for the lack of love. So what's left for him? Nothing. There will be nothing left. This is the sad reality the little pig is starting to face, even without realizing it. But what about you? Do you like Peppa's brother or not? Leave a comment below with hashtag #LoveGeorge or #HateGeorge so we can know. Disobedient. George crying a lot and being obsessed with dinosaurs are things that don't please Mommy Pig and Daddy Pig, but those are far from being the only reasons why even they don't like their own son. The main cause of their hatred is George's disobedience. He rarely obeys his parents, and we can see a bit of that in several episodes. In one of them, George spills food on the floor and starts playing with it in a completely disrespectful way. Mommy Pig tells George that he can't do that, but that doesn't stop stop him from continuing to play with his cereal instead of eating it. Mommy Pig doesn't show anger at that moment, but we're not able to read her thoughts. What if she's furious on the inside and holding herself back so she doesn't end up scaring her children? George is lucky that his parents prefer to raise their kids with patience. Hated by Suzie. Even people outside the pig family don't have the best opinions about George, especially Suzie. The sheep visits Peppa so often that she can almost be considered part of the family, so she knows very well how annoying George can be sometimes. Not to mention that as Peppa's best friend, she probably spends plenty of time listening to the little pig complain about the boy. We can clearly see the dislike Suzie feels in the episode where George and Richard are making a mess in the bedroom, while Peppa and Suzie want to play in a calmer way. Both she and the little pig seem like they'd love to put George and Richard into a catapult and launch them as far away as possible. Can we really blame the sheep for not having the best opinions about Peppa's brother? Hated by Richard. Okay, George has a bad reputation, but at least he has a best friend who likes him, right? Well, actually, it's possible that even Richard Rabbit doesn't like his own friend. The two are always together and playing, which makes it seem like they like each other, but have you noticed that Richard has gotten into some trouble because of George? He was kicked out of that treehouse because Peppa doesn't like his friend, and no one cared about that. And what if that means no one likes Richard because he's friends with the little pig? They've been together for so long that when someone thinks about George, they also end up thinking about Richard, and then his reputation gets ruined even though he didn't do anything. On top of that, Richard has other reasons not to like his supposed best friend that much. When the two first met, for example, George destroyed Richard's sandcastle for no specific reason. Maybe the rabbit is the kind of child who doesn't know how to tell others when he doesn't like something or someone, which makes his friendship with George pretty toxic. Snowball. George sometimes gives people good reasons not to like him very much, but there are times when Peppa simply goes too far when getting revenge, like when the two are playing in the snow and Peppa decides to throw a world-sized snowball right on top of George. Obviously he cries, but this time crying was completely understandable. Just imagine being crushed by a ball bigger than you like that. Will Peppa's hatred for George one day grow so much that she'll do something even worse to the poor guy? Cold. In fact, we think what she did in that episode was revenge for something George did when he got sick. In the episode George catches a cold, the boy feels unwell after playing in the rain and does things like sneezing in Peppa's face and spending the whole night sneezing and coughing, which kept Peppa from sleeping. None of this is directly George's fault, but it seems that his older sister held a grudge and decided to get revenge by throwing that giant snowball. The episode where she attacks George was released earlier, but nothing stops the cold story from having happened before that episode in the confusing Peppa Pig timeline. Subscribing to the channel is just as good as watching your favorite animations. Shall we click? Hated by his classmates. At school, things aren't much better for Peppa's little brother. We had already talked about how Peppa's friends didn't care when George was kicked out of the treehouse, so we already know that, at the very least, the girls in the class don't like him. It's worth remembering that even though he's younger, George studies in the same class as Peppa. That's yet another reason for no one in the classroom to really like him. They're in a different stage of life, enjoy less simple games, and don't cry over just anything. Luckily, there are two other children George's age in the class, Richard Rabbit and Edmund Elephant. Richard is probably in the same situation as George, as we've already made clear, but Edmund is much more intelligent than someone his age, so he likely doesn't suffer because of it. Hated by Edmund. Speaking of that, for this same reason, we doubt that Edmund likes George any more than the other students do. The elephant's intellect is much greater than George's, and even greater than that of the older students, so he probably sees Peppa's younger brother as someone boring. Of course, Edmund is too intelligent to go around saying that out loud, so he simply keeps those kinds of thoughts to himself, but an observant person can notice the prodigy's arrogant side every time he says something. At least George isn't the only one Edmund sees as inferior. It's possible that this elephant thinks he's better than everyone else. Hated by the teacher. Madame Gazelle is always very patient with the children, but she's yet another one who has good reasons to think that George is her least favorite student. Just think about everything we've said so far about the boy studying in a classroom made for older children. While everyone else is acting the way Madame Gazelle expects, George and Richard are there acting like younger kids, making more mess, having more questions during assignments, and causing disruption during playtime. If something unexpected happens in the classroom, it's likely that those two will be the ones responsible, since very young children are completely unpredictable. If you like this video, there are two more ready on the screen. Just click and keep watching with us. Thanks, and see you soon.